Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody's talking now about guns and gun control. We'll be having a feature about that. And there was an article in the Wall Street Journal that I've been mentioned today that Trump's lawyers are saying to the special prosecutor, well, how about us giving you some paper and see if you like that? But the whole idea is that there's a resistance to the fact that there's a circuit court ruling that presidents shouldn't be questions about what they do, and I think this whole thing has got to stop.
Yeah.
It's an outrage. It really is, and they go back and forth about dossiers and Christopher Steele, and the Democrats have their version and the Republicans have theirs, and I think American people are sick of it. But the good news, if I can say that, is that the American people are now voting in favor of our president. He's got almost up to a 50% approval rating, and it's going higher. People really like this tax cut.
Well, I think they're also seeing that the whole fake news thing isn't just him not liking what the press says. It's that they're reporting inaccurately.
Jay Sekulow told me that he is, one of the legal team. He said every day they have at least 3 fake news items they have to dispel. 3 times. Every day they have to say, no, this isn't true. And I think journalists are just sitting around making up stuff. I really do. I think they just say, well, how can we hurt the president today? And up comes this garbage. So, I mean, but anyhow, it's interesting what's happening. But hopefully this Mueller thing will be over and quickly. And, the president can get back to work, which is what we want him to do. Well, Congress is back to work in Washington, and the debate over gun violence and security for schools is front and center. And after that terrible mass shooting in Florida nearly 2 weeks ago.
Well, Congress is considering a wide range of ideas, including some from President Trump. But so far, it doesn't look like any of them may become law. Jenna Browder brings us the story from Washington.
Thousands of students returned to Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School for the first time Sunday after a gunman opened fire, killing 17 of their classmates and staff members. A powerful visual and one of many to put pressure on lawmakers to take action. But right now, they have no clear direction.
It doesn't seem to make sense that you have to wait till you're 21 years old to get a pistol. But to get a gun like this maniac used in the school, you get that at 18. I mean, that doesn't make sense. And frankly, right. I explained that to the NRA.
President Trump is floating ideas, even signaling a willingness to break with the NRA on age restrictions and bump stocks. The NRA sharply pushing back against any calls to raise the age limit on an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle like the one the gunman used.
Let me just say the position is you do not want to raise the age.
That's what the NRA came out and said. That's correct.
One area the president and NRA appear to agree on is securing schools. Trump calling for some teachers to carry guns, saying it's up to the states, but he thinks it would work.
And if they had concealed permits, you wouldn't have this problem today.
Meantime, some Florida state legislators want Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel suspended. The state is launching an investigation into how local law enforcement responded to the shooting. The probe comes at the request of Governor Rick Scott after video shows at least one sheriff's deputy standing outside the school instead of running inside to engage the gunman. Here in Washington, some lawmakers like Representative Steve Scalise say those kinds of breakdowns and the fact that so many laws already on the books were not enforced shows that no magic bill from Congress will stop another shooting from happening again. The most likely legislative option is bolstering background checks to buy guns. But with so many differing opinions, it's not clear what Congress will do. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
We have a tendency here to demand that Congress do something, and invariably they do the wrong thing. There are about 300 million guns in people's hands across the country right now. So the question is, what do we do? But there is no way under heaven that an AR-15 automatic weapon comes under the purview of the Second Amendment. It just doesn't. The right of the people to keep and bear arms should not be abridged, but that doesn't include, they didn't have automatic weapons when the Constitution was drafted. They didn't have it. And this so-called bump stock, you hit the thing, and all of a sudden it becomes a machine gun. I mean, they should be taken out of the school, but how do you get them out of the hands of people if they're already there? I mean, we can't have some confiscation of guns. That would just cause a horrible uproar. But, you know, the president's out here, Terry, we have at CBN a very competent security force.
Yeah.
You know?
Very.
And these people are most of them are qualified and certified as members of the Virginia Beach Police Department. Mm-hmm. So they have weapons training, they have all kinds of training in what to do in emergency situation. And people don't mess with us.
But what do you do when you have security people on the ground, like this school apparently did, and they didn't have a plan that was significant enough that those people knew they needed to get in there and do something? And what do you do when the perpetrator is running off with students? You don't even know, if you weren't there, who the guy is.
Well, the thing, the FBI failed on this one. It did all.
I agree with you on that.
Mm-hmm. There were any number of warnings, including the guy himself. They were all. He said, "I'm going to be the school shooter." They knew who it was, and it was just, you know, that sheriff again. They calling for his resignation. He should resign, but the man who was standing there hears gunfire. And he stands outside the school instead of going in to defend. That's not the way you do it, and he ought to get fired immediately. But that's not enough. There needs to be procedures, and especially there's got to have, in terms of these threats that come in, there has to be some classification. So this is a number 5, this is a 4, a 3, a 2, a 1, or whatever. And so people will know, all right, this is an emergency, let's take action immediately, or this is just another crank. Anyhow, will they ever figure it out? No, there's too much,
political stuff. Yeah.
the French word is color. There's too much heat in this whole issue. Well, in other news, a dramatic protest. Get this, despite the problems that Israel is facing, the municipality of Jerusalem has decided it wants to tax Orthodox churches, and it wants to make taxes retroactive, and it is just a killer. And the press on it is just terrible for Israel. Well, Orthodox church leaders closed the doors of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Israel over the weekend, and John Jessup has that.
That's right, Pat. The church leaders took that action Sunday over a municipal tax dispute, but some say the move was a ploy to gain international attention. Chris Mitchell brings us that story.
The church leaders are angry over a decision to collect municipal property taxes from church-owned properties, excluding churches and houses of prayer.
The Jerusalem municipality issued scandalous collection notices and orders of seizure of church assets, properties, and bank accounts for alleged debts of punitive municipal taxes.
The municipality says the churches owe some $185 million in back taxes. Greek Orthodox Patriarch Theophilus III said the city's move seemed like an attempt to weaken the Christian presence in Jerusalem.
The systematic campaign of abuse against churches and Christians reaches now its peak as a discriminatory and racist bill that targets solely the properties of the Christian community in the Holy Land. This reminds us all of laws of a similar nature which were enacted against the Jews during the dark periods in Europe.
Jerusalem Mayor Nir Barkat disagreed. In Jerusalem, all are equal under the law, Christians, Muslims, and Jews alike. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre, as is the case for all of Jerusalem's churches, synagogues, and mosques, is exempt from municipal taxes. There is absolutely no change in this regard. Commercial buildings such as hotels, places of commerce, and office space, however, are not exempt from municipal taxes, regardless of their ownership. The Haifa and Tel Aviv municipalities collect municipal taxes from commercial church assets. Jerusalem City Council member Flor Hassan Nahum said the uproar isn't about persecution, it's about money.
We see this as a very cynical move from the church, where we're talking about something affecting their pockets and nothing else, and them wanting to turn this into a religious conflict using terms like persecution. Jerusalem is the only city in the Middle East where there is true freedom of religion and true freedom of worship.
The disagreement actually mixes two issues: the municipal taxes and pending legislation regarding lands already sold by the churches.
My legislation discusses land that was sold to private owners, and it was sold actually a not very high sum from the churches, by the churches, and these private owners now are going to people that live in apartments and saying, if you don't pay us 500,000 shekels, you lose your apartment.
In Israel, almost all of the land belongs to the state, which leases it to builders, so even homeowners don't own the land. One exception is the Orthodox Church, which purchased lands for agriculture 200 years ago, long before the state. Now those areas are in central Jerusalem. Knesset member Raquel Azaria is sponsoring the new legislation. She told CBN News it aims to buy back the land the church has sold.
It has nothing to do with any of the lands that are owned by the churches. And unfortunately, they got very nervous about it and very worked up. And now we're working with them to lower the flames and to make it clear what the real story is.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News.
Thanks, Chris. Well, Pat, back to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's, we're all for Israel, but, there are optics, and there's certain optics that you need to resolve. They're in a fight with Iran. They're in a fight. We're in the process of putting our embassy in there, and the Trump administration is under attack for doing it. The Palestinians are making a fuss about all the stuff that's going on. And for them, for Israel to start a fight with the churches at this time is just very unwise. The optics just aren't any good. But there's also, what they're trying to do, as I understand it, is to collect back taxes on this property, which amounts to millions and millions of dollars, which would bankrupt some of these churches. That's not cool. I don't care what they say about we're fair and so forth and so on. Yes, but back taxes. You didn't tax it before. They were exempt before. And now all of a sudden you're hitting with the back taxes. That is just outrageous, and it shouldn't be done. John, what do you have?
Pat, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu thanked President Trump this weekend for his decision to move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem in May. That would coincide with the 70th anniversary of the founding of modern Israel, created in 1948. Netanyahu called Trump a great friend of Israel.
This is a great moment for the state of Israel. President Trump's decision to move the American embassy to Jerusalem will make our Independence Day celebrations even happier. Thank you, President Trump, for your leadership and for your friendship.
Netanyahu is expected to invite Trump to Israel when the new embassy opens. Palestinians, however, oppose the move, and Turkey calls it extremely worrying. Well, here at home, the Trump administration is considering an offer from a major Republican donor, Sheldon Adelson, to pay for at least part of the new embassy in Jerusalem. State Department lawyers are also considering soliciting contributions not only from Adelson, but potentially other donors in the evangelical Christian and American Jewish communities as well. Well, internationally known evangelist Dutch Sheets brought word here to the nation's capital this weekend that a spiritual turnaround is coming, and he believes it will lead to a worldwide harvest of billions of souls. Paul Strand brings us that story.
Conferences are all well and good, but Dutch Sheets and more than 1,000 Christians are here for one at the Trump International Hotel that's meant to literally start turning the nation around. One of evangelist Dutch Sheets' ministry friends had a startling prophecy for the U.S. back in April.
10 months of turmoil before breakthrough came, and then it'd be 3 years of turnaround for America.
And of course, there's been political upheaval, hurricanes, fires, floods, and more. All sorts of turmoil these last 10 months. But Sheets says now's the time for God's people to push for the promised turnaround.
There's another level of intercession, prophetic declaration, kingly intercession, making decrees for him that is going to now launch us into what we've been asking for 25, 30 years. A third great awakening in America, another great awakening around the world. And I believe the greatest harvest in history it begins now.
Cindy Jacobs prophesied to Sheets it should start on Washington's birthday in the city named after him.
And Holy Spirit said, tell Dutch, relaunch on 2/22 in Washington, D.C.
Many people believe America certainly needs it.
The turnaround is a reversal of the turning away from God in this nation. It's the apostasy. We are an apostate nation. We have rejected him. Something has to happen in the hearts of people to where they will say internally and outwardly, what does God think about this? It's a return to him. It's a return to his word. It's a return to his ways.
And he says that can lead to change that permeates all society.
If we sow seeds of righteousness, we receive the blessing of heaven. That means physically, spiritually, marriages are healed, lives are put back together, drug addiction goes down, disease is eradicated.
And Sheets expects from a reborn America, God will change the world.
I believe we'll see more people saved in the next 20 years than we have in the previous 2,000. I think in the billions, not the M, but the B, the billions. I think Asia is about to get hit with a tidal wave of revival, and I think it's going right into the Middle East. The best days of the church are not behind us. They're ahead of us.
So you might think this has nothing to do with you, but if you can pray, if you can intercede for your nation, you can have a part in the turnaround. Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from the Trump International Hotel, Washington.
Thanks, Paul. And Pat, as you know, many Christians have been praying for that turnaround for quite some time.
The Bible indicates, I think, before the Lord comes, there's going to be a great harvest, a great awakening before that great and terrible day of the Lord comes. There'll be a wonderful, wonderful last, like the sun before it sets. It gets very bright and then it descends. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing. At CBN last year, we had, according to the surveys, that we have had about 85 million people in 1 year come to the Lord. Now, if that's what we're doing, think of what all the people all around are doing. And this is an outpouring of the Holy Spirit. The charismatic churches, by the way, are on the way to hit 1 billion. We've got more people than probably any other denomination. You put them all together, and it's at least 600 million people say we're spirit-filled. So we're looking at 1 billion. So it's a very encouraging thing, what we're seeing. But again, we've had days of trouble, and to come into a wonderful experience like this, I hope Dutch is right. He's a good guy, and I'm all for it. So we'll just continue to pray. But Terry, I'm not sure when it's all over. You get the the brightness of the setting sun, and then the world may descend into real chaos before the coming of the Lord.
But this is all prophetic and scriptural, and so, I'm looking for it too.
The Bible will always come to pass.
Yes.
All right.